the work quickly. Down to 6 seconds. Carr going down again. And it's Quentin Williams this time for the Jets.
Over the middle in the air, picked off. Brian Poole to the end zone, touchdown. The punter to beat, and the punter brings him down. Braden Mann saved a touchdown most likely. Looks right, fires a bomb down the right sideline again for Mims. What a catch!
And welcome back to another episode of the Cool Your Jets podcast. I'm your host, Ben Blessington, with Michael Nania, and today we are lucky enough to be joined by, in many ways, a legend around these parts, Robbie Sabo from Jets X Factor. Robbie, how you doing, man?
You are out of your mind, Ben.
A legend. I think so. Michael, I think you agree, right?
I think it's a worthy moniker.
Stop, you guys.
There's nobody in my mind that has or should have more credibility than you, Robbie. I think that the work you've done over the last few years is pretty next level. So we're very fortunate enough to be graced by your presence, honestly.
All right, now that we leap out of fantasy land, thank you. Let's leap into factual world, shall we?
Yeah, factual world. A few days from now, free agency will commence, and the time is now, Robbie, for Joe Douglas and the Jets to turn this baby around. So I guess we should just start there. I mean, how much different do you think Joe Douglas's strategy will be as compared to last year? Because I think a lot of fans were let down by the approach last year, but in retrospect, and as going to what I just said earlier, you were ahead of the curve. You wrote an article basically detailing why that was the smart move for Joe Douglas to not overspend last offseason. So is that, a victim of, it was a weak free agency class and there was concerns about, how COVID would impact the season? Or do you think that is really just Joe Douglas's mindset when it goes to free agency? And do you think we might see a similar type of free agency this year?
I think COVID and a weaker pool could have a lot to do with it, but it's more the the old school strategy. Free agency doesn't build a team in the NFL. It does it in the NBA for sure, but not in the NFL. So Douglas, whether it's a bad free agent class, good free agent class, will only pull the trigger on when he knows his team is ready for it. And it increases each year. Last year was pretty stagnant. He didn't do much. This year, as we just discussed before, I think he will target Tooney as a great example. So I think he'll kick it up a notch this year, but I wouldn't expect him to go crazy. I wouldn't expect any 2015 McCagnon aggressive rebuild.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing with Joe Douglas and his mindset is that we've only seen him for 1 year. So I do think it's a little early to sort of peg him in any way in terms of how he's going to approach things. I think with another year, especially in a season where the Jets could spend a lot of money, we could learn a lot more about what his approach is going to be. So it will be interesting to see if he's similarly frugal as to how he was last season or if he ramps it up a little bit. But looking at some of the needs across the roster, because there are so many of them, pretty much any position that isn't interior D-line is a question mark in some way. So which of the needs on the roster do you think they're going to look at first and foremost, try the hardest to fill in free agency?
Tooney, interior line, edge, and, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this year compared to the last previous, there's more available edge rushers than there has been in a while, right?
Definitely.
So that is a gift. So it could be edge number one. But I think Tooney, considering how much they like him, it'll be interior O-line number one, edge number two. And then other than that, maybe a corner. But other than that, more importantly, bringing on the right guys. I expect at least a couple ex-Niners and guys that fit Saleh, fit what they're trying to do. So edge, interior line, and then people. Who are the people they want to bring on?
Your analysis of how the Jets are going to approach free agency is, no offense, but a little depressing. But I think you're probably right. I think it is a bit of a wet blanket, but I do agree that I don't expect Douglas to, go bananas. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really line up with what we know about him and a lot of the things that we praise him for. But you do mention edge. How realistic do you think it is that the Jets do wind up paying a big name guy? Shaq Barrett hit the market and Carl Lawson hit the market, which is honestly pretty surprising. There's Yannick Ngakoue out there. There are some big name edge rushers. There's some, probably a second tier of Hendrickson, Aquara, those type of guys. But how realistic is it that Douglas could dump, a considerable amount of the salary into an edge, a top tier edge player on free agency?
I think it's pretty likely, to be honest, because on day one when he showed up, he said something Maccagnan never said. It's about the lines. It's about both lines and the quarterback. He knows how important the conventional four-man rush is, and so does Saleh. Saleh, his defense is vanilla. It relies on a four-man conventional rush. See, Douglas, he's frugal, but he doesn't mind spending when he knows it's well worth it. And even if he overspends on a Carl Lawson or Shaq Barrett, he knows it's worth getting one of those guys in to fit what they need right now. So don't be too depressed. I think he could shock you, but I don't see any, George Steinbrenner stuff coming.
Yeah, and then looking at another position on defense that I think is a really underrated need that more people should be talking about is the linebacker position. I think, and it is interesting to bring this up so early because I think it is worthy of being brought up that early before even positions like wide receiver, because it is that important, but people aren't really giving it the attention that it deserves. So what do you think the Jets need in a linebacker in free agency? Because they have CJ Mosley, hopefully healthy enough to come back, and also hopefully at the same caliber player that he used to be. But next to him, this is going to be a 4-3 base defense. Obviously, you're not playing that the entire game, but this is Robert Saleh did play base more often than most other teams in the league. So they are going to have that three linebacker look a lot of the time. So what do you think the Jets need in their linebacker additions next to CJ Mosley?
I mean, simply put, a guy who could move, a guy who could cover. They don't need it doesn't have to be a big guy. It just needs to be a guy who could play as many situations as possible. What you don't want in today's league is a Bart Scott in 2010, 2011, where you have to take him off the field in passing situations.
Just gonna flame Bart Scott like that, Jets legend. Okay, Robbie. I may have to take away your legend status for that, but unnecessarily.
Please do. And Bart, you gotta, in today's league, linebackers have to play each situation because it's just, you don't need the hard-hitting guy anymore, like a Scott. So Nania keyed me onto this guy. Jayon Brown fits the bill. Morrow fits the bill. Someone who can move is priority.
Yeah, I think everything that you said there is definitely accurate. I mean, they're going to be looking for guys who can fly around. Nicholas Morrow is another guy. I think Tyus Bowser is intriguing just because of the Baltimore connection to Joe Douglas, but I can't tell, is he more of a 3-4 outside linebacker, or can he be a 4-3 Sam type of guy? It is interesting to see, what type of linebacker are they going to invest in? Are they going to go after one big will linebacker? You mentioned Brown, maybe a guy like Quan Alexander, who just got released, who has experience in solid scheme. Maybe they'll go quantity over quality in this case and look at guys like Anzalone from the Saints or Kevin Pierre-Louis, who's a former Jet. I tend to believe that Douglas is going to go for quantity over quality with maybe one, maybe two kind of big free agent signings. I could see a situation where he signs maybe Tooney and then 10 other kind of guys who just slip through the cracks. And in this free agency market, that might be the best strategy, just because so many of those guys are slipping through the cracks because teams are having to save salary cap space. And those solid, good starters are falling through because teams don't have the cap necessary to keep them. And I think cornerback position is another one kind of like that. It's weaker than the linebacker, the edge group. But the Jets obviously have a huge hole there. I mean, I'm a big believer in Bryce Hall, but I think he showed more promise than Bless Austin did in his rookie season, but I don't want to fall into that same trap of just, okay, that guy's good. I think Bryce Hall is going to be good, but at the end of the day, he only did play half a season. He's a 5th-round rookie. So they have to have depth there. I think, first of all, they're going to look for a slot guy. And I guess my first question to you is, what do you think they do there? Do you think they look towards re-signing a guy like Brian Poole, who's been nothing short of great outside of the injury issues? He's been, an absolute difference maker. Or do you think they go to maybe somebody in Saleh's roots in K'Wan Williams, who has a very close relationship to Saleh and in his own right has been very good when he can stay on the field? And then on top of that, they got to add probably another outside guy. And this is a weird cornerback market because there aren't really any top tier cornerbacks or any of the top free agents. It's kind of, Chidobe Awuzie, Shaq Griffin, Jason Verrett. There's all sorts of different kind of mid-tier guys, Mike Davis with question marks. So how do you think they try to address that cornerback position?
I think Poole will be the first target, because other than Tooney and possibly an edge, I don't think Douglas will look to overspend anywhere else. Those are the two positions where he won't mind overspending if he could get his guy. But at corner, slot corner especially, I think he'll run hard at Poole and K'Wan Williams. That's the guy that keeps sticking in my head as well if they don't get Poole. So I think, yeah, you're right on top of it. Now let me ask you guys, free agency, what would disappoint you what would be disappointing, a disappointing return in the end?
I think it definitely comes down to the interior offensive line. I think that will define the Jets free agency period. Because, like, look, if they signed, let's say they go bananas and they signed Tooney and Lindsley, and then they just crap the bed everywhere else, I think I would still probably be happy. I think as long as they can shore up that offensive line, I think that's going to be the one move, or maybe two moves, that Douglas can make that'll push this team farther ahead than any other free agent signing. I mean, I guess edge rusher holds that as well, but if they shore up the interior of that offensive line, especially considering you got Becton, you got draft picks to add to it as well, you have presumably a new quarterback in there, new system, etc. I just feel like that offense is going to take a leap. I mean, we were talking about it, I think, with you last year before the season when it was like, okay, this Jets offensive line was terrible. Let's get him to mediocre. And then next offseason, we can look to be good. And then the year after that, you can look to be great. I don't know if they reached mediocre. I mean, I guess you could say they were mediocre. I think Becton shined. I think there were question marks elsewhere. It was an inconsistency. Maybe they didn't take the jump we wanted to, but Becton was so good that I'm still pretty optimistic about Douglas's ability to build it up. But now he's in a position where I think he can really turn this around. So if they whiff on Tooney and they don't get any of those other top guys and they kind of go again with the Connor McGovern type of B tier free agents on the offensive line, I think I'd be pretty disappointed. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, I agree. I think it all comes down to supporting the quarterback first and foremost, because you're probably going to have a rookie quarterback in there. So I think they need to do whatever they can to help him out. And that starts with the offensive line, then at wide receiver. And I don't think they have to spend big money there. It's definitely a position where I think you want to be a little cautious with that, especially because they do already, in my opinion, have two really good pieces in Crowder and Mims. But starting with the offensive line, I think doing nothing on the O-line would be a big disappointment. And then at edge rusher, I think that would also be the other thing that would disappoint me, because they just haven't tried at edge at all in so long. So they have all this cap space. There are a lot, even if you don't get one of the top guys like Carl Lawson, Romeo Okwara, Trey Hendrickson, even if you don't get one of them, there are plenty of players, veteran guys who can just be upgrades as pass rushers, whether it's Clowney, Vinny Curry, Everson Griffin, Alden Smith, not great players anymore, way past their primes, but they're still far better than what the Jets have and have had in the past few seasons. So just try it, edge rusher. I think if they didn't do that, it would be pretty disappointing. So edge and O-line, I think, are the spots, if they don't come through there, would be disappointing.
Yeah, it's also, I agree with you, Robbie, about Joe Douglas's philosophy, but I also think there's a way for Douglas to be aggressive in the free agency market without being dumb. And I think we just Jets fans haven't really witnessed this that much. But I think I would be disappointed if it just kind of felt like they weren't utilizing this great asset to build up the team in a year that the Jets have significant leverage here. And I think I'm also of the mindset where it's like, I think the days of a 5-year rebuild in the NFL are relatively over. I think you can do it in 3. And I think Jets are kind of in year 2 is what I would say. They tore it down to the studs and now they're trying to build a foundation here. And I don't think that means they should go dump huge money into Juju Smith-Schuster or Yannick Ngakoue or something, but they can be aggressive. Hell, not even with dumping a ton of money. They can be aggressive in the sense that, and I'm not saying this would be a good move, but cutting Crowder and signing Curtis Samuel or something like that, where you're not really losing much from a money perspective. I mean, Samuel will probably cost $3 or $4 million more, but maybe you're getting a guy who might fit the offense better. I think personally they should probably keep Crowder, but I think there are moves they can make that Douglas can show he's being aggressive, that he's doing everything to improve the team. Because I think that was the big thing last year where it made sense, but it almost felt like he wasn't trying to improve the team at all in March. And I think there's a path for Douglas to doing that. I guess, what do you think about the prospect of cutting Crowder? I saw you had an article on why the Jets should under no circumstance do that. But given that this is such a stacked receiver class and the types of receivers that are coming out are slot guys, so maybe the Jets fall in love with Kenny Golladay or they fall in love with Will Fuller or something. They sign him to a contract of $12 million, $13 million, whatever it is. And then it's like, well, we can save some money at this receiver's position, cut Crowder, and then draft kind of a shift to your slot guy. I guess, what do you think about the prospect of cutting Crowder? Do you think he is an uncuttable player on this roster?
No, he's not untouchable. And see, Crowder is a weird fit in my eyes. he's a great slot guy. But you generally want your slot guy, or at least one of the three starting weapons, to be able to take jet motion duties, to be able to be that X factor guy, that gadget guy. Crowder's not that guy. Mims is not that guy. And if you get another outside weapon like Galladay, you don't have a guy out of those three who could do it. Kansas City has, I mean, of their 6 receivers, probably 4 of them can do it. So the game is changing. I see a world where it's possible to have Crowder and Samuel on the field at the same time. That's how drastically the game's changed. So Crowder is not untouchable. If they lock up Samuel and think that's the right move to go with Samuel in the slot, cut Crowder, and then find your outside weapon in the draft, but that's a scenario worth investigating. I saw on Twitter someone said, you should never get rid of talent in the NFL. If you have it, don't get rid of it. That's not the NFL. You know, this is a hard salary cap. Each player's salary is a percentage of the total pie. So there are always scenarios and situations in which a player could be cut. You just can't keep adding onto talent. That's not this game. So it depends. It depends what LaFleur wants too. Does he want that Debo Samuel type? I mean, Debo could do a lot more than just take jet motion duties, but who is he planning on to fill that role, that do-it-all role? And they don't have a guy. And if Crowder's the slot guy, he's not that guy either. So it's pretty interesting with Samuel going into the offseason.
And you talked a little bit about the potential of Jamison Crowder and Curtis Samuel coexisting, but I want to talk about 2 guys who the Jets already do have, who have a big question mark of whether or not they can coexist. And that's in the back end of the defense with Marcus May and Ashton Davis. So do you think those 2 guys long-term can play together on every single down? And what is required of the safeties in the defense that Robert Saleh is going to run?
They can play together because May could do more of the in the box stuff. And I think Ashton could play in the box too. But more specifically, they could play together in a Robert Saleh defense because he loves his cover 4. He loves his 4 across 2 deep stuff. And he loves to have his safeties be able to do both, play in the box and play deep, rotate against motion. It's a stark contrast to Greg Williams, who had a strong safety and a free safety no matter what. And they didn't change hands. So I do think Ashton and Marcus May can coexist. And what was the second question?
And what do you think are the main requirements of a safety in this defense? What are the primary skills that might be more important in this scheme than others?
Right. Versatility, number 1, because he wants his safeties to do both. Cover, number 2, because it's a bend but don't break type defense on the back end a lot of the times. And just overall awareness, between the ears, instincts, number 4. So it's more about the head stuff rather than the physical traits for the safety and the Saleh D.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did get to see both of them kind of play for free safety and strong safety roles at different points this season. It seems like the beginning of the season, it was the plan to have Marcus May fill Jamal Adams' shoes. And so you saw, I mean, especially week 1, May looked great, and reportedly throughout training camp, he looked great in that role. It did seem, as the season went on, they decided that May's best and most natural fit is as a free safety, as a middle fielder. And then the problem with Davis is it's not like Joe Douglas drafted Ashton Davis thinking that he'd be playing with Marcus May. I think Joe Douglas probably drafted Ashton Davis thinking that he'd be playing with Jamal Adams. I think it was a situation where he fell to them in the 3rd round. Douglas realized where the team was. It wasn't like they're going to be competing. So they're going to take the best players. They probably had a late 1st round grade on Davis, or maybe an early 2nd round on him. And they took the best player on their board, but it was also because, look, May's contract is going to be up. He can slide in. We think he's a great player, etc. But now they're in a situation where they have both. And I think it is a really interesting storyline to watch because, look, a guy like Keanu Neal is sitting on the free agent market who has experience in this defense, who played under Jeff Ulbrich, who's probably more of the traditional strong safety. You also have Jaquiski Tart, who played under Robert Saleh. So there are some question marks. We're going to learn about how much Joe Douglas trusts Davis and May to play together, because towards the end of the season, we got to see Davis play more of the strong safety role and May play the free safety role. But Davis is, at least from his college tape, was pegged as a great center fielder. So they're both similar in strengths, but I agree that they can do both. It's just where are they best? And I would say right now, the proof we have is they're both best at free safety, but it's something interesting to watch, certainly throughout this next week, because I do think safety is a position that they could target who are some, speaking of, I guess, under the radar type of free agents, who are some under the radar free agents that you think the Jets will target? Maybe obviously name wise, but also position wise. I mean, there's a guy like Jonnu Smith who I think Jets fans are starting to talk about more, but he wasn't really coming up a few weeks ago. And now it's at the point where, look, you can make an argument a second tight end is more important than a slot receiver. So if you add Jonnu Smith, you have him and Herndon. That builds up that 12 personnel base offense that we know LaFleur is going to want to run here. Kyle Juszczyk, fullback, who obviously that's a position that's necessary for this West Coast scheme. So I guess who are some under the radar guys, obviously from a talent perspective that might not have the same name recognition, but also from a position perspective that Douglas could sign that you think could turn some heads?
I think look to San Fran, and you said one of the guys, Tart. Tart is one of the guys I could see him signing. We don't know how May's going to respond to this franchise tag.
Right.
You know, he's a good guy, but he came into the league 2 years older than normal seniors. He was 24, so he's 2 years older. He wants that multi-year deal immediately. So we don't know how he's going to respond. And Ashton Davis last year, yeah, I do think they projected him as a deep safety, but I think his draft status was more had to do with his work ethic, his character. That's kind of another Douglas theme. You know, he rode his bike from the hotel to practice every day. He doesn't own a car. He's just that throwback guy who just is only worried about one thing, which is football. Those are the guys Douglas is after. So Tart's definitely one of them. Juszczyk, I guess you can call under the radar. Every fullback's under the radar these days. So look to San Fran, I would say, for those under the radar guys.
And then in terms of the big name free agents, because there are a lot of names that we're all throwing out there, and we all wish the Jets could come out of it with Galladay, Lindsley, Tooney, Lawson, just a complete package that you could probably do in the JetX offseason simulator, but won't happen in real life. But of those big names, Tooney's an obvious one, but outside of him, which big names do you think the Jets are going to be in on aggressively?
Tooney for sure. See, it's tough because big names with Douglas, it's a short list. It all depends on how the contract goes. It all depends on how the negotiation goes. He has a number in his head, and if it goes past that number, he won't go past it. So Tooney is honestly the only big name I could say for certain. Sherman, maybe the other, with the Salah connection. So I won't go too deep on that one. I think just we'll go Tooney and Sherman.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. I would say that for me, I think Tooney makes a lot of sense, but I also think that Lindsley is kind of a sneaky addition there. I mean, he's an all-pro center who has experience playing for Michael LaFleur's brother. He's a perfect zone scheme center, zone rushing attack center. I just think that if they can beef up the line with both Tooney and Lindsley, I don't think players like that hit the free agent market that often, especially two of them. I think two super durable guys still in their prime, not completely over the hill or anything like that. The Jets have the cap space and the opportunity. I mean, this money has to go somewhere, right? You can't just keep carrying it over year after year and never spending it. And it's like, if you can shore up that offensive line, especially with Tooney and Lindsley together, the rest of your offense is going to flourish. Whoever you draft at quarterback or trade for Watson or Darnold, or whoever you draft at running back or receiver or add at tight end, it's going to affect everything. So you can go bargain bin shopping everywhere else if you put money into the offensive line. I think Douglas has talked about since day one, building up the trenches, like you said, and he has a golden opportunity to do that with the edge market and the interior offensive line market. So I think they'll do some big fish hunting in those areas. I don't think they're going to go crazy. I think if some team tries to offer Tooney $17-18 million, I would understand Douglas backing out, but there really isn't an excuse. I don't think that's what Tooney's going to get, especially with the fact that the guard market has been flooded with so many talented guys. I think there's no reason why the Jets can't outbid everybody else when it comes to Tooney. Robbie, for you, who we know Tooney's on this list, but who is your personal wish list for the Jets?
And to your point too, we don't know. They could target Lindsley before Tooney, valuing the center.
Right.
So we don't know. McGovern came into the league playing guard. We'll see. But the wish list, I guess, would be Tooney. I'll go Lawson at edge, but edge, there's a couple options. A dream wish list: Tooney, Lawson, Juszczyk, Sherman, and Samuel. And we'll start with those 5.
You took a lot of names out of my mouth. I think mine would be, I would definitely go with Tooney and Lawson. Yeah, I'd put Juszczyk on there as well. I think he really is, if they are going to feature it a lot, if LaFleur just want to carry that aspect over, definitely him as well. I would add Jonnu Smith, though. I think instead of any wide receiver, I think he can, in this offense, become a huge upgrade for the Jets and be a top 5 to 10 player at the position at a much lower cost than a top tier receiver might be, who wouldn't exactly be an elite player like a Samuel or a Corey Davis, who are great players, but they might not necessarily be top 10 to 15 receivers, whereas Smith can be a lot cheaper and be, I think he does have the potential to be a top 5 type of tight end. And he's a great fit in this offense with his yak ability. So I'd say Jonnu Smith, Joe Tooney, and Carl Lawson would be probably my dream wish list. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I don't think they're going to sign all these guys, but Lindsley, Tooney, the fact that Lawson hit the free agent market to me is pretty crazy. He would be in that list. Jonnu Smith would probably be in that list, but I'm not going to be losing sleep if he signs elsewhere. To throw out some different names, I guess, I'm Michael, you pointed about Nicholas Morrow, though, from the Raiders. I think he would be a tremendous addition to this defense.
I don't know how I forgot him. He's on my wish list too.
Yeah, I like Morrow too.
I'm very curious about that cornerback position because there's no way that they just roll into the draft with just Hall, Austin, and whoever they sign at slot. They're going to sign somebody, and it's just a weird market. I don't – from a contract and a team play standpoint, it doesn't really make any sense to sign Sherman. Seems like he should go to a contender. He's on the back 9 of his career. He's not the player he was. But then, look at it from a locker room standpoint, a leader – I guess it would make sense, but I'm not a fan of shelling out $10 million to Richard Sherman. So then you look at, like Chidobe Awuzie is a guy who's a Pro Bowler in 2019, had a lot of success in his own system. Last year was not nearly as good. So there's a gamble there, but those are the type of gambles in free agency that, may burn you in the end, but as long as you're not giving away a ton of guaranteed money, those are the type of signings that could really help you. You sign a guy when his stock is low and then it booms the next year. He's a guy that I think I would throw on that wish list. I don't expect them to get Lawson. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Jets to target him, but I think they probably will have to go with the secondary guy there. The edge class for the draft maybe isn't top heavy as it has been in years past, but there's a lot of really good guys in that range where the Jets have multiple picks, from 23 from the Seahawks pick, 34 from their own second rounder. And then if they trade Darnold, to have another second rounder. So from that late first to second round spot, there's a lot of good edge guys. So I could see him, especially if they miss out on Lawson, unless Saleh really thinks he can unlock Ngakoue, or they want to throw a ton of money at Bud Dupree or something. I could see him going cheap and just going with like Kerry Hyder and Vinny Curry or something, and then drafting a guy. So as far as wish list, though, Tooney and Lindsey, number 1. Receiver, I'm honestly, I don't think Douglas is going to shell out a ton of money to the receiver position. I just don't. I think, you're looking at Kendrick Bourne, who is one of the more efficient 49ers players last year. He makes a lot of sense. Maybe they turn around and sign Nelson Aguilar, who was reportedly great friends with Joe Douglas. I just personally don't think they're going to invest that much. So wish list lies, I'm kind of leaving that position off.
You know what? I could see Aguilar. That's a good point. That's a really good point. And then Jets fans are going to immediately tab him Perryman 2.0.
But he's not. I mean, you look at the production that he put up last year once he was moved outside, his confidence was up. And it's like he has that connection to Joe Douglas. I actually think he is a perfect fit in this offense. I don't think he's going to be that expensive. The age, he's 28, so it's not like you're getting a 24-year-old like Juju Smith-Schuster or anything. The other guy, I think the running back position is really interesting because I think that they are going to sign somebody because Douglas clearly doesn't value the running back position that much, but that doesn't mean he's not going to pay any money to it. I don't think he's going to go after Aaron Jones, and I don't think he's going to invest a first-round pick in a running back. But I think he's going to throw around maybe a guy like Jamal Williams is a guy who's floated around. Marlon Mack is really intriguing to me. He's a guy who tore his Achilles, and we don't really know what he is at this point. But before that, I mean, I think he's a perfect fit for what the Jets are looking for. So why not kick the tires on a guy like Mack on a cheap one-year deal? You have Ty Johnson, you have Michael P. Ryan, Josh Adams, and then maybe you draft a guy on day 3. It's going to be an exciting week. I mean, the time is really now for Joe Douglas to put his stakes in the ground on what this team is going to be. It feels like the first 2 years have just been kind of demolishing what the Jets have been for the last decade. He's accumulated a giant treasure chest of capital, but it doesn't really mean anything unless it is used right. And I think this is his first chance to really show Jets fans who he is. Who do you think Joe Douglas ultimately signs? next Friday, we're here a week from now. Who do you think you're writing Jets X Factor articles about?
Let's go optimistic. Let's go Tooney.
All right. I feel that.
And when you said Tooney and Lindsley, I kept thinking, no way he's going to spend that kind of money in one shot long term. Now, if it was a 1-year deal for one of them, he would do it. But long term on 2 interior linemen. But Lindsley at center makes it a possibility.
Right.
Definitely a possibility. So I'll go Tooney. I do think they're going to go Juszczyk because I think Douglas and Saleh value character above all else, work ethic as such. And Sherman, I sort of agree with you. I'm not crazy about the idea of dishing out big time money to Sherman. Whatever he gets on the open market, he's going to be overpaid. We know this.
Yeah.
But the thing with Sherman, again, is if it's a 1 or 2 year deal, it's a transition move. It's a coach on the field move, leadership move that really does pay dividends for young kids. So Tooney, we're talking about Tooney. We're talking about, I do think he'll get an edge, but I do think it'll be a notch below the loss since the Bears. And then a bunch of guys here and there. Hopefully Jonnu, I would agree. I left him off my wish list, but he should be on there as well. But the big name, Tooney, and then take your pick.
And then I guess to wrap it up, where are you on Zach Wilson versus Justin Fields?
Well, I think it's Zach Wilson. Full disclosure, I got to look into the film a lot more. We got to view what Sam's done so far with the film. But from early on, what I've seen, I think it's about accuracy, leverage, reading leverage, and throwing guys open. Fields has a tendency of only throwing the ball to open guys. He doesn't throw guys open. And looking at those tight windows in college is what translates to the NFL most. So I think it's Zach Wilson. I think I know where Nania's head's at in this topic.
I'm so in the middle. Ben is trying to pull me onto the Justin Fields side,
well,
but I'm teeter-tottering right in the middle.
I didn't realize that.
Well, it's not like I hate Zach Wilson. I think I came out kind of a little strong against him at the very start. I compared him to a baby-faced elf, and I think that they may have swayed some people into thinking I hate him or something. I think the Jets are in a terrific spot. As long as it's not like I hate Sam Darnold, but I just think it makes all the sense in the world to trade him. So as long as they do that, whether it's Deshaun Watson, whether it's Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, hell, I could probably talk myself into Trey Lance. The Jets are in a great spot. I think that both Fields and Wilson are going to have success in this league. I think the thing that scares me is that I think Fields is a safer prospect. And you could also argue he has the higher ceiling. With Wilson, it's not that I don't think he's super talented, because you're right. Those throwing windows are what translates most. That processing speed is what translates most. I think some of Fields' slow processing is due to the system that he plays.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
But, the whole Zach Wilson can play backyard football and throw off any platform, and Dan Orlovsky calls it magical sloppiness when you refer to Darnold. We saw with Darnold how that deteriorates in the NFL. It doesn't have to, but if he's not surrounded the right way, you can't play backyard football all the time. And I just feel like, especially when you're playing at BYU against a bunch of guys who are going to be selling insurance and cars in a few years, it just doesn't translate the same way. That innate feel and that, backyard football style, that's something that takes time once you get comfortable. And there's going to be an adjustment period. So it's just, I like Zach Wilson. I think he's intriguing. Personally, I'd feel more comfortable with Fields, but hell, you damn know if the Jets draft Zach Wilson, I will be all aboard the Zach Wilson train. I think they're in a terrific spot. I think they're both A-tier prospects. As far as if the Jets were, having to pick a quarterback in any class, you'd want it to be this one. That's how confident I feel about this. Now, what do you think about?
You're both on the trade Sam Darnold, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think it's a higher chance that Darnold stays than people acknowledge, but I think at this point, especially after Douglas said that they're taking calls on him, it's every factor from the pick that you're going to get from trading Darnold, building on the rookie contract, considering where this team is at, playing the odds game of, can Sam Darnold turn it around after being one of the most historically bad quarterbacks in NFL history? Man, that was a bit of a stretch, but last year he was for sure. And yeah, is Sam Darnold ever going to be Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers? Probably not. Can he be Jimmy Garoppolo? Can he be Jared Goff? Yes. I think 2020 was his floor. So for all those reasons, it makes a lot of sense. Now I will ask you this, and we can close on this. It's been getting some more rumblings today. Deshaun Watson. And this seems like the opposite of everything Joe Douglas would do. And in fact, he pretty much confirmed as much at his press conference a week ago, just touting the importance of the draft picks, and that the work that he's done over the last 2 years is to set the Jets up to be long-term sustainable playoff contenders and winners. And that's building up this draft capital, using it, hopefully hitting on it. And then just sustaining a pipeline of young players coming in and out of the system. He came from a place in Baltimore that has consistently led the league in compensatory picks. When was the last time the Jets had a compensatory pick? That's the type of system Douglas is trying to build. So trading it all for Deshaun Watson doesn't necessarily scream Joe Douglas to me, but I don't think there's ever been a situation like this in NFL history. Can you recall a 25-year-old all-pro quarterback in the prime of his career, forcing his way out of a bad situation? And by all reports, sounds like he would accept a trade to the Jets, and the Jets are the number one team position to get him. And Woody Johnson coming back. I mean, I could see it. Robbie, what are your thoughts on this? One, is this a move, if GM Robbie Sabo, is this a move you would make? And then two, is this a move you think Joe Douglas would make?
I think I'm in line with Douglas on this one. I mean, I'm obviously guessing what Douglas is thinking, but yes, I would take Watson, obviously. But I'm not on the train that says I'll do whatever it takes to get him. I think the number 2 pick is extremely valuable. And on top of that, you're sitting in the king's chair. You have most of the leverage. Yeah, the Dolphins have the assets too. So the Dolphins are a huge possibility, but they also have a bigger headache with Tua. So I think Douglas is going to be patient. He would have conversations about Watson. He would surely take him. But I think his limit would be the number 2 and 2 other first-round picks. Maybe something thrown in on top of that. Something along those lines. I think if he had to go to 4 first-round picks, he'd be out. And he wouldn't – I mean, he would care if he went to Miami, but he wouldn't blink. He would just move forward with the plan. And that's kind of where I'm at too as well.
I think everybody saw our reaction pod when the Jets hired Robert Saleh. I can only imagine what our reaction pod would be if the Jets traded for Deshaun Watson.
It would be nuts.
I'd have to just lower the decibel level in the entire episode, because I think Michael and I would just be screaming into our mics the entire time. It is certainly an exciting time to be a Jets fan. I think I say this every offseason, but this does really feel like the most important offseason. I don't want to say in Jets history,
it's like every election. This is the most important election in your life.
But it really does feel that way. It really does feel like the Jets are at a crossroads right here, and that they can either go one way, and that way is into a perennial playoff contender and hopefully winning a Super Bowl in the next 5-10 years. The other way is more of the same, more of missing on draft picks and overpaying on free agents and it not working out, and Saleh getting fired in 4 years and Douglas right behind him. They're at a crossroads right here, and it starts with this offseason. The time is now for Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh to turn this baby into a winner. And they certainly have the ability to do so. There's no excuse that they didn't have an opportunity to, because I would say at least half the GMs, if not more, would kill to be in the shoes that Joe Douglas is in right now, despite being 2-14 and whatnot, and the Jets being a laughingstock. The Jets are in a power position, and they haven't been in one for a long time.
And you know how they're close to? The ultimate test is this. People want to go there. They only won 2 games, and people want to flock to the Jets because of Joe Douglas, because of what he's doing. What was the news today? I still have to look at the news today. Who was the doctor they hired? They just news today where they hired someone, and it's a big move to combat the injuries they've been dealing with. Moves like that, under the radar moves, are huge for a program, and they really go under the radar because they're not players, they're not GMs, they're not coaches. So the Jets, to your point, the Jets are really close, and I know that because people want to go there.
Yeah, Dr. Brad DeWeese. I looked up the tweet. Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea considering how many injuries the Jets have had over the last few years. But you're right. You're 100% right that if Joe Douglas was not here, I think this would be a very different vibe. It'd be like, here we go again. This could go right, but it probably won't. I feel very optimistic. As a Jets fan, I think we're conditioned to be pessimists, but I really do feel good about the direction of this team. I think Joe Douglas gets it, and I think Robert Saleh was a hell of a hire. And I think that was the first, maybe not the first, but one of the big moves where it's like, okay, this Joe Douglas guy got it. I think, if he was to go and hire Marvin Lewis or something, I think the alarm bells would be going off in my head. But I think right now I'm feeling very good about Joe Douglas's ability to build a winning culture. Robbie, it was an absolute pleasure having you on, man, and breaking it down. Only a few more days to go until free agency. Where can Jets fans find your work? You run a podcast at Jets X Factor as well. You write a ton of articles all the time. One of the best follows on Twitter. So just shout out your stuff where our listeners can find you.
Well, the podcast and Twitter have been lacking as of the last couple of weeks, but head to jetsxfactor.com and check out all our stuff. We brought on a few new writers recently who really know the game, just like Nania, Blewett. So check out the website, jetsxfactor.com, JetX Mobile on Android and iTunes.
Nania, Blewett, Blessington, you can throw me in there as well. No offense taken. I'm sure.
You are present with me right now. It's me, you, and Nania. Come on.
All right. I'm gonna take away your legend status just for that. We opened with you being a legend. I think we're closing with this. No longer.
I'm gonna call Bart Scott right after we're done.
You can follow us at CYJ Pod on Twitter. You can follow Michael at Michael_Nania, myself at Ben W. Blessington. Find this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, jetsxfactor.com, the best place to go for Jets content. Robbie, thank you so much for joining us. Jets fans, a few more days, and it begins. The time is now for Joe Douglas to turn this baby quickly around.
Down to 6 seconds. Carr going down again. And it's Quentin Williams this time for the Jets.
That's over the middle in the air, picked off. Brian Poole to the end zone, touchdown. The punter to beat, and the punter brings him down. Braden Mann saved a touchdown, most likely.
Looks right, fires a bomb down the right sideline again for Mims. What a catch by Denzel Mims.